Hello. How are you two doing today?
Hey,
I
Andrew.
Hi, welcome. And welcome to everybody off at home. I am Andrew, so if you have never been here before, that is my name, and welcome to Get Right On In. I am joined today with Miss Lezlie from The Nerdy Narrative and one of my bestie writer friends, Miss Ardell. I will give these two lovely ladies just a moment to introduce themselves, but first I will just let you know why they are here and what is happening. So as a writer myself, I have found that the thing that I have feared more than anything on my journey is the opinion of the illustrious reader. More so than the opinion of an editor or a publisher. Like, I have lost the most sleep wondering about what the opinions of the people who purchase the books are. So after discovering YouTube a few months ago, I found myself just as fascinated with the process of reading a book when you have no intention of ever writing one yourself. And it has become just as interesting to me as I feel like readers who are interested in the actual writing process. So as such, I just wanted to establish a way for readers and writers to connect kind of more on a general basis, wherein we can discuss similar thoughts and ideas on books and what's going on in the writing market between both the reader and the writerly perspective, without the writer necessarily having to be like the topic of conversation and, under the hot seat for anything that we may or may not like. So I asked these two ladies in particular to join me for this first of maybe potential many conversations, because they each, on a separate occasion, had something to do with the culmination of this idea. The first was a video off of Leslie's channel discussing villains, which is going to be our main topic today. And the second was a conversation that I had with Miss Ardell after we filmed our little character battle scene, which, sorry, Lezlie, but both of those videos will be linked down in the description box.
Oh.
And since you were the first to kind of start this idea, please, Lezlie, let us know a few more things about you and your channel and what you do.
My name is Lezlie Smith, and last year I started a little booktube channel called The Nerdy Narrative. And when I first started, it was primarily science fiction and fantasy. And as I progressed, I made friends with other creators and, of course, consumed a lot of booktube and saw reviews, and actually ended up expanding my literary horizons. So now I include so much horror and manga, literary classics. It's just been absolutely wonderful to be exposed to so many different types of literature that I didn't even know existed, and I am absolutely living for it.
Yeah, I feel that. Miss Ardell, tell us about, I want to know all about what's going on in your background right now, because I know, but I want the
Yes.
world to know. So tell us all about yourself. You also have a YouTube channel, you're a writer, but you take it from here. You let us know, Miss
Wait,
Ardell.
she's got a YouTube?
She does.
Subscribe?
She does.
oh, God. Now I'm looking at the sparkly background that Leslie has going on, and I'm totally mesmerized and hypnotized. Uh, let me quit looking at Leslie.
Sorry.
So my pen name is Ardell, but you guys can call me Ebony because that is my actual name. I do write science fiction and fantasy, urban fantasy, space operas for young adult audiences and new adult audiences. Let me see. My first book came out in 2016, and don't ask me when the second book is. One of those people where I'm like, wow, that is like a 5, 6, 7 year gap between two books. And what it is second book is with the publisher, and with COVID and everything going on, the publication process has significantly slowed down, but it is in the works. And I sound like a broken record because I'm always like, it's coming, but I can't give a date. So I want to quit talking about it, but at the same time, you want to promote it.
For sure.
But my book is called, the first one that's out is called The Fourth Piece. The second one that's coming out soon, hopefully, is The Third Gambit. And I do have a YouTube channel where I promote my works and just things I do as an author. Right now on my YouTube channel, I have this show called The Author Logs. And basically it stars the author, which is me. And I just don't get along with my characters very well at all because they all think that they can do my job better than me, and they always have a problem with a choice that I made. So we argue a lot. There's a lot of back and forth. And because some of those characters were really funny, and as you can tell from my background, and this is a green screen, so the stuff's not actually behind me, so I'm turning back like, oh, there's nothing back there. So, if you can tell from the background, these are various characters that I play, and they were so good, and I love their wigs so much that I was like, you guys need your own show. So now in February, we're going to have a spin-off show called Superheroes Inc. starring these characters. The author will still make appearances as they complain about what I'm doing, but they'll have their own plots, and it'll be shot kind of like in reality TV show style. So there'll be confessionals where they'll come and be like, I can't stand this person, or what a stupid thing that happened. And they'll interact.
I love it.
Watching them.
So they're breaking the fourth wall. That's awesome.
Her video, I've enjoyed the author log videos. Those were technically what started the idea for that character one that we ended up doing. Because I was like, oh, Eboni, you're gold.
Both of you did an absolutely amazing job. If I were a casting director, I'd have been snatching you up. Both of you.
Let's get the people of Lucifer in on that video, then we'll see.
Right?
And I truly, I just have a wig obsession. So I'm like, this is an excuse to keep buying wigs because I need to, be different characters and look completely different. So yeah, I need that blue wig and that purple wig and that
it's a business expense.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, go write that off.
I tried. Donald didn't give me any money.
All right. Well, why don't we jump into some tea and we'll get straight right on into some shenanigans, and let's talk about some villains here. And Ms. Lezlie, would you like to kick this off with some thoughts or questions?
So where the idea came from for that video is I was reading a series, and I won't say which one it is. I'm going to keep the character names out of it, but the general gist of it is the bad guy character, in my opinion, was not a bad person. He was a great person, a very noble person who was influenced by people who lied to him and told him, you're this thing that was prophesied. You're the chosen one. While they were maneuvering him to do very bad things, and he just didn't know. And so we made him, the reader made him the bad guy. And I just got to thinking, and I mean, the whole series, I wanted this person to just redeem themselves and not be the bad guy everybody just thought he was, because I'm reading reviews, watching other videos on it, and they're all like, oh man, this person's this, they're this and this. And I was like, no, don't forget, he's noble. He just doesn't know what he's doing. And so then it changed from a redemption arc to, I wish this guy would win. And it's just, it's not fair. It seems that there's always the good guy and the bad guy, and the bad guy always loses at the end of the series. And people are like, well, if the bad guy were to win, the world is over. Okay. Well, when the last book in the series is written, that world is over. So why not let the bad guy win? Or, and I know this would be crazy to do, my idea was, what if we had like a trilogy where the author, maybe the third book, we have the good guy wins and the bad guy wins, and the reader can choose which ending they want. I don't know. I think sometimes the reader decides on who the bad guy is, and perhaps the author doesn't see it that way. And then I thought, does the author, I don't know anything about writing, and I'm like, well, do the authors have the complete story in their minds when they start, or do they have an idea, or do they have a character, and does the character write the story? And does the character determine its actions? And I just why can't the bad guy win sometimes? And it doesn't even have to be a happy ending. Like, I'm cool if it is complete and utter destruction. Like, the world burns. That's fine. And then somebody told me, well, publishers don't like that. So if an author did want to write it that way, the publisher's like, no, we need a happy ending if we're going to be able to sell it.
All right.
I'm like, dang
Well, speaking
it.
of publishers too, Miss Ebony, you also work as a literary agent assistant. So you are kind of like half in that publishing industry there, as well as obviously publishing your own books. So rebuttal
Ooh.
from the writer.
Like there's so many answers for that because I'm with you, Lezlie. I love villains. And I honestly think that the best villains are the ones who aren't just written to be straight up evil. Like there is
Yes.
no good story where the villain's just mwahaha, let me twirl my mustache. They always have a cause. And sometimes their cause and beliefs are so much deeper than the heroes. The heroes is just, I'm trying to stop you. But it's like, but the villain actually really has a purpose. And sometimes the villain is so much smarter, so much craftier. They have better technology, better superpowers. That the only reason why they lose is due to plot. The plot made it to where they had to lose. Something dumb happened, and the hero won. Luck. And I don't think they got a real win. I'm just like, so you got lucky, and that's not satisfying to me. That villain should have won. So I'm with you. But unfortunately, when it comes to the publishing industry, I don't want to say the majority of readers, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who feel like you and me, but you know, you have people who are like, reading is my escape. And there's so much bad in the world. I don't want to go into a book where bad wins. So even if it's unrealistic, I want the good guy to win. And that's what the publisher's banking on.
See, on that note, now I'm not a writer, but when I was in junior high and high school, I wrote a lot of short stories because I had a freaking terrible childhood and teenage years, like awful. And I wrote short stories as a way of a sort of therapy. And now I did write characters in these stories that were bad guys that represented the people that were hurting me in my life because I couldn't do anything physically in my life. So in my stories, I wrote them in just so I could freaking kill them in the worst ways possible. I mean, it was dark, like very dark. A teacher found one of them and like turned me into the counselor.
Oh no.
In eighth grade. And I'm like, oh.
I'm fine, I promise.
So to me, that I just get a little bit of satisfaction out of it. Because you're right. The villains are, most of the time, they're the more clever. They're so smart. And the hero wins by dumb luck, or actually they had a smarter friend who figured out what to do.
Yes. Like Hermione
Granger.
Because like first book, second book, third book, it's Hermione who's the hero.
Yep.
I do have a question though, Lezlie, because when you talk about the potential of a third book having two separate endings, where one would be the good guy and one would be the bad guy, as the reader, wouldn't that spoil the book for you before you even started it? Because you would have to make the choice first on which one you would know would win?
Because of 4-book series that I read last year, I knew in book 1, like the character development was so freaking masterfully done for all the characters. And there were good characters and bad characters. And I loved every one of them. I rooted for every one of them, whether they were good, bad, gray, it didn't matter. I loved all of them. But I knew what I wanted to happen in book 1. I knew what I wanted the ending to be. So that would have been no trouble for me to choose what I wanted, and it would have been the villain. Now, I can also tell you this. If someone ever did write 2 books for an ending, good or bad, I'm going to read both of them. And for me, that wouldn't be a spoiler, because in my opinion, if you tell me how your book ends, I don't care. It's the journey for me. How do we get there? And, you know, the villains also just never really get a chance. Like, a lot of them just aren't developed enough where, why can't we just take a minute to understand why they are the way they are? Because bad people of the world, they weren't born bad. They just didn't wake up and decide, I'm going to go do these awful things. There was a catalyst. There was something that happened. And, you know,
I agree with
they
you.
just don't get their fair chance.
I
But
agree
yeah, I
very much.
just honestly, Andrew, I would read both endings.
I mean, that's interesting, but one of the things that I personally relate to the most out of what you've been saying is I know that you both have like been watching all my videos, but when I talk about like my Immortality Awaits book that I hate, I very frequently talk about one of my main characters, Druin, and how he reads in the published draft like he's just evil to be evil. And Ebony knows where the story has gone. She's been part of a lot of these further revision processes, and that has been one of my main focuses with that character is like if people think that he's bad, which in my head I didn't even want him to be bad, and so then to read him and to feel like he's just being bad to be bad, that irks me very, very much. And so I just very much feel like that, you know what I mean? Like what you're saying is
Yeah.
like they didn't just
Well,
come
I
out of the
mean,
womb like that.
honestly, there's probably some times where that does happen. I mean, when there are some people who are mean for the pure and simple reason they just want to be mean.
Yes.
So I don't know. I'm just gonna have to read it. I've got it. I'll just have to read it and let you know what I think.
Don't read that awful stuff.
I read his drafts with Druin. I never thought he was somebody who was bad just to be bad because he introduces the character and his circumstance. And I'm like, well, he was just somebody who wanted to.
You didn't read the published version. From the moment I met you, started with the revisions. So that's why you're like, oh, we met him at the, yes, because you know what happened. you know the end result where, yes, it is very different in the versions that you have read, Miss Ebony, for sure. So Ebony, when it comes to creating villains for you, especially, I mean, I'm not going to get too much into the spoilers of your series, but you do have one main, I mean, Order's Last Play is the series name. So what is it like for you when you are crafting the villain? Like, what is your thought process? Do you have any of that kind of thought in the back of your head as far as, is this just evil to be evil? Or what is it like when you're crafting up your bad guys?
Well, Lezlie brought up some really good points in her intro when she was discussing villains, because I never just create anybody to be a villain. What it is I have characters, and the things that they decide and the things that they need to do, the reader could choose to make that person a villain. So my main antagonist in my series Order's Last Play is, of course, Order, who is a goddess, but she's not an evil goddess. Gods aren't like us. They're like, I want territory. People worship me and give me blood. I need this and this. So to her, she's not doing anything bad. So if she's not morally making a choice, she's not like, I'm doing something wrong, then she's not really a villain. She doesn't think what she's doing is wrong. The other people think that. And then another character I have that is, people will read him and think, oh, he's gone to the dark side. It's like, well, if you read that person's thought process and why they chose to do certain things and you choose to empathize, like, okay, I would never do that, but I see why he's making that choice. To me, he's not a villain either, but I know readers will see it that way. And I've had people say that, yes, he's bad and evil. And I'm like, oh my gosh, but you didn't understand why he made this choice and it hurts my feelings. But yeah, I never write anybody just to be bad.
So I love when characters are ambiguous, like you can't tell, and all of their actions throughout the book, you're just like, oh, this is a bad guy. No, wait, he just helped this person, or stood in for this person and, defeated this, but no, wait, he's plotting on this. And then at the end, it just, you finally make a decision, and then you get to the end and you discover it's something completely different. Now that is just absolute pure joy for me as a reader. I love when you can't tell. Like, I just absolutely adore that. Whether he ends up being good or bad, I don't care.
Yeah.
I just love when I'm constantly questioning.
Yeah. And for like you saying that makes me immediately think of Snape because I feel like that was how that
That's
was
exactly
like the
right.
whole
Yeah.
series. Like, is he good? Is he bad? Like all the way up until I remember like when book 7 was about to come out and there was like bookmarks. Like one side is like he is good, one side is like he is bad. And like
Yep.
and that was a very that was an interesting storyline to follow along with. I'll just say it like that in case people haven't read it, so they don't know. But that was very, that speaks to me. And like
Yeah, it was.
that transition and following along that whole time and just always wondering. But I kind of like having the same type of thoughts with the hero. Like, is the hero actually good? Or like, because the hero usually comes with their own, or heroine, if we're going to be, fair, but hero or heroine usually comes with their own share of negative traits as well. That, I mean, in light of sometimes the bad guy just being the bad guy, sometimes it's counterbalanced to where the good guy seems good just to be good. And I feel like that's just as annoying.
It is. You want them to be human.
Yes.
I mean, give me, if you're gonna write a hero, make them a little selfish.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm selfish. Make them a little selfish.
Yeah.
Make them somebody you can relate to.
Yeah.
Yeah, both of them, villain or hero.
Yeah.
Because that's when it gets interesting.
Yeah. Because I've always, I guess, felt like there was always a thin line between like hero and villain in the first place. And especially even based on this conversation, it often seems that it's the reader who makes that up, because even when we're talking about, Snape 2 seconds ago, there would be people who would never once consider him a villain in that story. And then there would be people who would consider him a villain the whole time. You know what I'm saying? And so it's always just like just as much of a subjective opinion, I think. And I don't know, I feel like that's part of what interests me as well when it comes to the character development of the hero's journey, because that's just become such a typical like arc of plot lines to follow. But then there's also some cracks in that formula as well.
But I mean, it also depends on the POV that the author chooses. Because in Harry Potter, if we're using that as an example, we get the story basically from Harry and what he sees. If she had told that story through Snape, we would have known, okay, he's not the best person. He is selfish. He's doing this because he loved Lily and lost her and this and that. But we would have known, no, he wasn't out to get Harry. No, he was believing in Voldemort's principles and things like that. So it just depends on kind of what the author wanted you to see and believe as well, because J.K. Rowling definitely had it in her mind who she wanted to be villains and who she didn't want people to like. So she made sure you saw them in certain people's eyes who would view them the way she did. So, the author's manipulating you still.
We do that sometimes.
Sneaky.
And we do like to kill people. I wrote that in a little tag I got this morning on Instagram. Asked me what my favorite thing about being a writer was, and I said killing people.
That's him.
Wow.
Place that on the rest of us. He likes to kill people. I feel sad when I write people, even characters I didn't like.
I feel sad too, but
yeah, I was about to say you were really depressed over the death of one.
I was. But it's still, I mean, it adds to the drama and like the everything, and for me, I guess that's part of like, if I don't walk out of a death scene feeling like that, then for me, I don't feel like I've done a good job. Like, I feel like if I don't feel it first, then nobody else will feel it either.
You
and
can kill all the people you want to, just leave the animals alone. Okay. Why do authors kill animals?
That's so true.
It is true.
I mean, I get so tired. I mean, the dogs and the horses and the wolves.
Always got to
That is so funny. You'll read a book, people die, and you don't cry, but then the pet dies, and you're like,
Exactly.
Seriously.
Exactly.
Yeah, no.
I mean,
leave the fur babies alone. I just like in rereading the Never-Ending Story, the freaking with Artax, the horse.
Oh.
Yes, I cry every
It's
time.
so much worse in the book than it was in the movie.
Oh,
He can talk in
man.
the book, so he's like talking
Yeah.
to you while it's happening. It's the worst thing.
Look, I mean, that whole scene is already just set up to be terrible.
Yes,
But
it is.
I ugly cry, and I have seen it so
Oh.
many times. They put it in the theaters like a couple of years ago, and I went and took Chris, and I still bawled.
Yeah, I bet.
But it doesn't matter what animal it is.
No.
If you kill an animal, I automatically substitute in my mind Milo or Bandit. Like,
Yes.
do you want this
Oh,
baby to die?
Puppy.
Like,
Oh.
no. We
Is that
don't
the one
want him
that
to
got
die.
attacked? Is that Bandit?
Yeah. That's why he's got his little dapper scarf on.
Oh.
Oh, it was a little baby.
Yeah. So, yeah. Don't just kill all the people you want.
Okay.
That doesn't bother me. Just
All
leave
right.
the animals alone.
I know. I mean, I do kind of feel that though. It tugs. It tugs.
I mean, even with fantasy novels, the horses in a battle, the horses get taken out. I'm
I
like,
know, it's never fair.
just don't draw my attention to it.
Never fair.
Don't go into detail about how many arrows pierced it before it went down screaming. Ugh.
I know. The neighs and the screams out in the air. Yeah, it's always so.
Sad ones though, like in fantasy, when the hero is riding the horse and the horse is like, okay, I know we have to get to this place for you to save the day. So the horse basically runs himself to death and he knows.
Yes.
And the hero is riding the horse like, you're ready too fast. I know you're gonna die. Oh gosh, that just gets me every time. Whereas if a man was running that fast and he gave out the last message and died, I'd have been like, oh, that was good of him. Let the horse die. Oh no.
It'll feel better once it quits hurting, dude. Yeah. I don't know why that is, but I guess I love my animals more than most people, so.
True. Animals, though, in the real life, animals are here for us at our worst moments.
Yeah,
more.
well, they're defenseless
Mhm.
and often innocent. Like, the horse would not go into battle willingly. You rode it into battle.
Right.
You took its choice away.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just helping you out. It's like, yeah, bro, I'll give you a lift. Oh, what are those sharp, pointy things coming my way?
Yeah. Last thing it ever does.
Yeah.
I don't even think I have like animals in much of my stuff because I feel like they're kind of annoying to write. Because like I don't know, it's hard to like fit it in for me.
No, you have an animal in that zombie story. And you killed her.
I did. You're right. I had a dog that I killed. Oh, and that was a really bad scene. I forgot you read that book. Look at Leslie's face. Leslie's before I knew you, I promise.
No, you did.
She's like, meeting over, we're done.
I'm not
I gotta go.
That was bad. That was a rough scene. I know exactly what you're talking about because I killed that dog. That dog did not just die.
And it was a dog.
It
Yeah.
was.
What would Piper say?
Piper would be like, well, at
Look
least
at her.
you named her
Look at
after the
Piper
dog
right
that you
now
liked
and
growing
think
up."
about what you did.
What was the name of that dog? And you forgot you did it.
I did. I totally forgot. I'm
Wow.
all, I never write animals. And you're all, oh, remember that one you killed in that one time? So, Leslie, what other questions would you have in regard, I guess, to this topic of villains from your little non-writerly perspective?
Well, I feel like y'all have pretty much answered the ones I would have for you guys because I'm sure each author has their own method. And I was just curious, and did they just start out being bad, or is that left to us, or or did you just let them develop, which y'all already answered. So y'all have me satiated on information for now. But I'm sure I will come up with some more as soon as I read another villain
I
story.
know you're gonna be like, but how come this happened? And then what about this? And it's gonna be hard to tell you. Like, I don't know. And
This question's for you. Have
okay.
you had a character that you were writing and suddenly, because you know characters take control of the story as you're developing them, but suddenly they had a thought or decided to do something and you were like, oh, wow, readers are going to see you as the bad guy for having this thought, and you honestly surprised me. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, are you sure you want to do that? It's like, yeah, I'm telling the story. It's like, are you sure you're telling the story? It's like, yeah, I really want to do that. And then you do that, and then people are like, wow, when this person does that, they come off as really, it's like, I told you not to do that. And
Like,
you went over there trying not to listen. And then that is how we ended up with our scene that we did, because them characters who are like, knock, knock. I think I
Yeah, you're like, you see this review? You see what they said? You see this? That's all you, buddy.
Yeah, I was
You
over
did
here
this.
trying to save you and your reputation, and you're over here thinking you know best. Okay.
but they do, because they're like, okay, yes, these readers won't like me, but honestly, it's going to make your story better. It was a little flat. Let me spice it up by having this feeling that you did not know was inside of me. Because I was like, oh, I didn't know you felt that way at all. This is interesting. Let me explore that. And then that character gets a whole new level of depth that they just didn't have. And you're like, oh, now you're more rounded. You're dynamic. People will hate you, but it's fun to hate people sometimes. So,
Yeah.
So when you get your character story out, does that character go away, or do they still exist? Like, you talk to your characters, or you let your characters talk? What happens at the end of the story for you guys with your characters?
For me, they never go away. They want spinoffs. Now it's time for my own series. I don't want any of those people in it. Write something just about man. I'm like, I'll see what I can do.
Mine are very much like, well, that's one draft done. So when does the world get to know our amazing story? And I'm like,
That's
like,
good to hear, because as readers, I suffer almost physically when a series is done. I love to read series because I love getting to know characters. I love getting to know the world. When I read, I visualize it. It's like a movie playing out. And by the time I get to the end of the series, I'm so invested in all of these people. Like, I feel like it's actually, I'm standing there watching it happen. And it's almost a physical ache when it's over. So it's nice to know, because I've always thought, I'm like, how do these authors just end it? How do they say goodbye to these characters and close the story? So it's good to know you guys suffer with us.
We do. And honestly, like, for me, one thing, like the very, very, very first time I ever wrote, like the first draft of whatever book, whatever, like at the end of it, I had this realization. I was just like, I will never have the opportunity of sitting down and picking this book up. Like, out of any book that I ever write, like, I will never have that magical moment where like I pick it up and I have no idea what's about to happen. And you never have that really ever during your story, because you're always thinking about what's coming next. The closest that you ever get is the first draft, when it's the first time that it's like coming out of you and you're telling yourself the story. But that was something that I wasn't really expecting. And like, I really have mourned that a lot. Like, every time I write a book, like, it's always something in the back of my head. Like, I will never have the opportunity to have that, like what you're just saying, Lezlie, about your experience. Like, I will never have that, because I will always be able to read a sentence and be like, I remember what it was like when it was first written, or I remember when it was more like this, or you know what I'm saying? And so it's always.
So that's why authors get so tickled when us little happy readers make videos about how much we enjoyed your books. You get to live vicariously through us reading it for the first time.
Because it's that joy and that excitement. And that's why I feel like authors are like, what do you like? What do you not like? What, you know what I'm saying? Because like you have the magical opportunity of having no idea what is coming your way. And that's another reason I feel like authors need to have other opinions on their work because they are so invested in their own story that they cannot visualize how other people can't see what they're seeing because they've always seen it, and their task is just to make it make sense from the brain to the page, you know?
That is a hard task.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys do it. I mean, I read some of these really well done stories and I'm just going, how in the world do these authors do it? How do they formulate these complex threads and just take it, and as you go through the story, the threads just come together in this beautiful tapestry at the end, and it's an art form, and my brain is just like, I don't know how you do it, but I'm glad that you can.
Yeah. There's a long process that comes out before them intricate weaves are so intricate.
Anybody ever describe one of my books as, wow, it was like a tapestry and you wove all this stuff together so well? I'd be like, oh, let me get my I cried when that horse died. You know, I would be an honor for somebody to say that about something that I wrote.
Yeah.
No, like Andrew, for you, have you ever really finished something and sat back and said, wow, you know, I really think that was really good and somebody else might think that was good? Or are you always like, you know, that's the best I could do for now. I have to at some point.
I know the answer to that one.
It's both. But there's definitely one that, Lezlie, that's why I feel like you know. I feel like actually I've told you a little bit about it too, Eboni, but it was that book that I started last July. Like that is so far for me been like the number one, like I cannot wait to share this with the world book that I've written. But for the most of the time, it's usually not that good.
How do you feel about your work, Eboni? Are you similar to Andrew about how you feel about your work, or?
I've never, like, the feeling that Andrew had about the book that he's writing, the one that's over 200,000 words now. Is it?
It's going there. It's working on it.
Like, I've never been that confident in my work. I'm always like, okay, you know, that was good. If I wrote something where I sat down and read it and I was like, okay, you know, I would read this, then, you know, I'm satisfied. But I always think things could be better. So, you know, when I get outside opinions and they say that's really good, I really did need to hear that because I didn't think it was good. So I like outside validation. I needed it.
Well, we are always our own worst critics.
I always question validation. You know that, Eboni. You're like, wow, this is really good. I'm like, yeah, you're lying. Where did I mess up? We used to have, was it bi-weekly meetings or did we meet every week?
I think we met every 2 weeks because we were submitting like 25 pages at a time. We were like, we can't read 25 pages every week.
Yeah, we had a little writers group, and then anytime we got together, and it was just like, oh, Andrew, this and that. I'm like, any compliment is a lie, so I don't even know why we're having this conversation today. Eboni, your stuff is great.
Thank you, Andrew, but I want to tell you how much better your stuff was.
Oh,
you guys. That was a fun time. I don't even know what happened to our other member.
I hope it's okay because he really did vanish, and he vanished with my copy of Memnoch the Devil and The World Without End. I don't loan my books to people. Like, I really have
me either.
That was a conversation when you gave it. I was there with you at your house because we both borrowed stuff. One of us returned.
But I was like,
guys,
one of us did not. I like you a lot, and he made off with my books.
I wouldn't even loan my mass market paperbacks to anybody.
Don't.
Yeah, I'm past that now. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Screw me once, shame on.
Yeah. I'm like, I will buy you your own copy.
I'll do that before I loan you a book too. Yeah, I'll buy you one.
That's right.
That's so funny.
My books are my treasures.
No, Lezlie, dude, Eboni, Lezlie doesn't even like fold her books. Like they have to be, and I swear she just like pulls up the page.
I do.
And like peeks in.
Like,
yeah.
Can't be cracking those spines. Can't be cracking those spines.
Oh my goodness, you would think I'm a horrible, monstrous beast. I mean, sometimes
Don't.
bookmarks for me are other books. I will put another book inside because I don't want to lose my page.
Ebony, you are a librarian too. You should know
I'm
better.
a librarian who doesn't check out library books as well. Like, I'm kind of one of the worst examples of being a librarian. I don't like library books, but it's mainly because I see what people do to them when they get returned to us. They're disgusting. So I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
use books.
Yeah, I almost need to wear gloves because I get manga from the library because
Oh.
manga is expensive and there's always tons for every series. And it's like,
And so
you
you're
just
reading
blow the page to make it turn because you don't want to touch it.
Yes. Oh, they're so gross.
Yeah, it's
One lady, she was using her hair as bookmarks, and then she returned the book, and then somebody else came back in Andrew's face, and she was like, I can't read this book, there's hair in it. And we're like, what are you talking
that's
about? She was being paranoid.
disgusting.
There's hair in the book.
I mean, with library books, it's almost as much fun trying to guess what is on the pages as reading the story.
I'm
That woman is
I'm
nasty.
over here. I've never even thought about that. So that's what that face was, because I was like, wow. So I'm just don't ever want to check out a library book again.
I mean, now it's probably safer because now all the books have to come in and be like thoroughly sanitized, and people are really, really looking to make sure they're not nasty before they go out. So it's funny, but yeah, library books are safer to check out now that there's COVID because people are taking them in and cleaning them and quarantining them. But before, people are absolutely disgusting. They'll eat their whole breakfast over a book and then bring it back, put it in jam, and we'll be like, we can't take this back.
Yes.
Yeah, you can still read it. Yes, but there's blackberry jam.
There's a whole freaking Popeye's biscuit in this
There
one.
you go.
Did you miss your mouth the whole time?
Yeah, and then I'm like, and you didn't bring me a Popeye's biscuit.
Right, because they are the best.
Yeah,
and
like,
now I'm hungry.
Overlooked what you did if you brought me something.
Yeah, half of this is hanger. So if you would have just
Yeah,
right? No, we have this one lady, she didn't like the book that she read. So she took a black pen and she's like, oh, they cuss too much. And she crossed out all the cuss words and then brought it back. And we were like, well, yeah, the person probably did cuss too much in this book because there's a lot of black in here. But at the same time, you can't use that.
It's like, you're done. Library card revoked.
Right? Weird.
It's like, congratulations, you just bought this one.
Exactly. But she didn't like it because it cost too much.
I just don't get that.
Mm.
Like, the library is not the first place that I think of to go and be weird. You know what I mean? Like, out of all places.
No, it is.
But I know I hung out at the library in Monterey, Ebony. I know what's going on.
Yeah, you met some people and you were like, Ebony, how do you feel about that?
What is happening here? It's the first library in California, and it's like so crazy.
Oh my goodness. Like, I loved working there and we had some of the most interesting experiences. Like, I was like, I need to start taking pictures and recording this stuff because when I come and tell people, they're like, that didn't happen. You're making that up. I'm like, you can't make this ish up. It happened. Like, I never would have thought of that.
We used to have those conversations. I would come in with my little restaurant stories, and Ebony would come in with her library stories, and we would both just be like, what is happening?
No, I can top that. No, I can top that.
Pretty much. I swear though, Ebony, it's because that library is right there next to that Stokes Adobe, and that one's scary. There's some scary stuff. It's got to be messing with the people and their energies over there.
There's the basement too. Somebody died down there.
Oh, see. Old Monterey, Lezlie, is very haunted. There's all of these like old places. I did this little haunted Monterey food tour last Halloween before COVID, and I learned about all these places. But there is a mansion called the Stokes Adobe right behind the library that was a restaurant as well. And everyone that ever worked there, it's like a very haunted place. There was a lot of murders and a lot of things from the 1800s that happened, and I don't know. And the old jail for me in Monterey is the scariest, but whatever.
Yeah, the old jails seem to always be some of the scariest buildings in the older places.
Yeah. But anywho, I feel like that will wrap us up on old jails and demonic spirits. That should wrap us up on our conversation about villains.
Wait, hold on. We have to try to bring it back to the conversation.
Yep, full circle.
We did. That's how writers do it. We had all the foreshadowing at the beginning, and then we had the extraneous stuff, and we brought it all back down at the end.
Yeah. Everybody died at the end.
Yeah, we're all dead.
But the dogs didn't die.
The dog didn't die.
No, the dogs are fine.
Not in this story.
They went ahead, they're like, the ending is coming, we're leaving.
Yeah, they're like, we had a good time.
Yeah.
And now the world has come to an end of the book. Or
What was that quote from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when the dolphins left? They said, "Well, goodbye, thank you for all the fish." That's so long. Goodbye, thank you for all the alpo.
That is funny. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining me on this adventure today. I had a great conversation, so I hope you did as well. And then anyone who is still here in the viewership, please, if you have not already, subscribe to these two lovely ladies. Lezlie posts on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Ebony's got some stuff coming up, so we've got to keep an eye out. Everybody subscribe. Everybody. All right. Bye.